Let's be honest. At some point, you've probably looked at an old photo or memory and thought, man, I was so much better back then than I am now. So maybe you were in better shape. Maybe you were more outgoing, more confident. Maybe you're more fearless. And now, looking at where you are today, it feels like maybe you've lost a step. Maybe you've lost something in your life. But the truth is, comparing yourself to your younger self is one of the most subtle forms of self-sabotage. It traps you in nostalgia, those nice rose-tinted nostalgia glasses, and guilt instead of helping you move forward. So in this video, we're going to talk about why you need to stop comparing yourself to your younger self and how to finally make peace with who you are as a person now. So I go over 3 things in every one of my videos, so we got 3 ideas here. First, life has seasons. You're not supposed to be doing the same shit forever. Number 2, obsessing over the old you only creates guilt and stagnation. And 3, sometimes growth looks different, but it's not necessarily better. So let's dive in with the first idea. Number 1, life has seasons. You're not supposed to be the same person forever. One of the biggest myths that we buy into is that we're supposed to peak and stay there for the rest of our lives. We think back to our younger days, 17, 18, 21, whatever it was, our age, our ambition, our energy, our body, our mindset, whatever it was. And we use that version of ourselves as a measuring stick for everything that comes after. But that's not really how life works. Life moves in seasons. There's a time for growth, a time for stillness, a time for ambition, and a time to look back on everything that you've done so far. There's a season for building your life, there's a season for maintaining your life, and trying to live your entire life like you're still in the same season is like trying to grow flowers in the middle of the fucking winter. It just doesn't work. You're supposed to change, you're supposed to evolve, and the things that mattered to you 5, 10, 15, 20, 2 weeks ago aren't meant to hold the same weight forever. But when you cling to who you used to be, you deny yourself the opportunity of understanding who you could be. Let's say when you were younger, you were full of drive. You stayed up late to chase your dreams, you built projects, working out like a maniac. That was great then, but now maybe your priorities have shifted. Maybe you're focusing more on stability, on your relationships, on your peace of mind. That doesn't mean you've fallen off, it just means you've entered a new season. The same way trees shed their leaves in autumn, you're meant to get rid of the old versions of yourself too. It's not loss, it's just transition. Think about it. Would you judge a 30-year-old for not acting like they did at 16 or a 40-year-old for not being like their 25-year-old self? Probably not. So why do we hold ourselves to that same standard? It's not possible. You're not supposed to be a constant copy of who you were at 19. You're supposed to be a continuation. And sometimes that means trading certain strengths for new ones. You might have less energy, but you have more wisdom, less excitement, but you have more peace and less spontaneity, but more intention. And that's not regression, that's just evolution. The second idea, obsessing over the old version of you creates guilt for yourself. So the trap really starts here. You reminisce about who you were when you were 16 to 25, and that version of you was more fit. Maybe they were more productive. Maybe they were more fearless. You're scrolling through those old pictures, rereading these old messages, and replaying your old memories, and that comparison hits pretty hard. You start to think, well, what the fuck happened? What happened to me? That's when the guilt sets in. You feel like you let yourself down, that childhood version of you. Like somewhere along the way you stopped being that person. Here's the secret. You didn't lose the old you. You outgrew them. The old you wasn't perfect. You just romanticized it. You remembered the energy, but forgot the insecurity. You remember the confidence, but not the confusion. You remember the ambition, but not the burnout that came with it. Memory has a funny way of editing out the bad parts. When you look back, it feels like a highlight reel. But you're comparing that highlight reel to your current behind the scenes. And like we talk about with comparing to other people online, that's just not fair. The more you obsess over recreating the old version, the more guilt and resentment you start to build towards who you are now. You start to think you've gone backwards when in reality you just moved laterally. You shifted directions. You're exploring new challenges, learning different lessons. Different lessons might be more difficult lessons, but that guilt blinds you. It keeps you chasing the ghost of who you are. Think about like trying to fit into some old clothes. Not because you failed, but because you've grown. Or you ever see, everything relates to basketball, but you ever see 60-year-olds trying to still dunk like they did when they were 19? Every time you tell yourself, I used to be better, you're reinforcing the idea that your current self isn't really worth a whole lot. But what if the version of you right now, tired, uncertain, maybe even struggling, is actually becoming something better or greater, even if it doesn't look like it quite yet? You can't heal, grow, or build while hating the person you are. So instead of saying, I want to get back to who I was, try saying, I want to build on who I was. Your past self was just a foundation. The point wasn't to stay there forever. It was to evolve past it, to evolve beyond it. So release the guilt. Stop punishing yourself for not being who you used to be. You've changed. And that's exactly what we're supposed to do. The third idea, Growth sometimes looks different, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's better. So the thing about growth is it doesn't look impressive. Sometimes it looks like slowing down. Sometimes it looks like saying no. Sometimes it looks like taking a nap, letting go, or admitting that you don't have all the answers. So when we think of growth, we usually picture progress, more money, more success, more achievements. But some of the most meaningful growth happens when nobody else notices. The younger you might have been chasing goals nonstop. The current you is probably learning boundaries, self-respect, and maybe some emotional maturity. And that's not regression. That's the definition of evolution. Maybe you don't party like you used to. Maybe you're not as adventurous or ambitious. But maybe that's because you learned the value of peace. Maybe you stopped trying to prove yourself and started focusing on understanding yourself. That's a quiet kind of growth, but it's very real. We live in a culture that glorifies more hustle, more productivity, more excitement. So when your growth looks like less, whether there's less busyness, less chaos, less pressure, you might mistake that for failure. But what's really happening is a transformation. The butterfly doesn't mourn the caterpillar. It doesn't wish it could go back to crawling. It simply accepts that it's changed form. And you've done the same. The hardest part to accept sometimes is that your best days aren't behind you. They're just different. Your joy might not come from the same sources. What you're passionate on or in might shift. Your goals might evolve, and that's okay. You're not supposed to feel the same, act the same, or even look the same. Growth isn't about becoming better. It's about becoming truer to you, more aligned, more grounded, more who you are today and who you want to be in the future. And that can only happen when you stop comparing evolution to a past version of yourself that doesn't exist. So if you take anything from this video, let it be this. You're not meant to stay the same person forever. You're meant to shed, to learn, and to transform. Your younger self wasn't the peak. That was just the foundation. They walked so you could stand here today with the perspective, experience, and the scars that shaped who you are now. So instead of missing the old you, try giving them a thank you. They got you here. But they can't take you where you're going next. Life has seasons. You're in a new one now. So stop comparing, stop mourning the past, start embracing the present. Because this version of you, the one you sometimes criticize or overlook, might just be the one your younger self dreamed of becoming. So if this caught your attention, resonated with you at all, drop a like and share it with somebody else who might need it. Comment down below, let me know what you guys are working on right now. And subscribe for more videos. Remember, you're not falling behind, you're just evolving. I'll see you guys next one. Peace out.